And then, Chair, I'll give you the heads up. And we are good to go.
I'm going to call this meeting to order of the Victoria Senior Citizen Advisory Committee. And instead of doing the roll call, I thought it would be helpful, since we have new members, to do a little introduction to each person. Patrick, would you mind starting, and we'll work our way around this way, a little background bio kind of stuff?
I'm Patrick Jones. I'm the manager of the Victoria Library and the Chanhassen Library. Before I came to Carver County Library, I ran for 14 years the at-home and homebound service program at the Hennepin County Library, which primarily serves seniors. So I have a real passion for this work and serving this community.
Glad to have you, even if you're from Michigan State. See, Patrick, I got the Ohio State stuff.
Oh, geez.
Not as bad as Michigan, but it's all right.
Patrick, though, Michigan State, we have a friend whose son plays hockey, and I think they made it into the Final Four for hockey. Yeah.
There's not enough fighting in college hockey, so I don't.
Yeah.
Pacifists. Sharon.
Hi, I'm Sharon Belfi, and I live at Ablite Village on 82nd Street up here. And I came from up north, Grand Rapids, Minnesota. That's about
Right.
3.5-hour drive.
Yeah.
And I'm here by my children because I'm now single. And I worked 27 years in retail management.
Great.
Yeah.
Richard.
I'm Richard Doyle. I'm originally from Eastern Montana. Retired about 10 years ago, came here. Sort of my background is my folks ran a nursing home growing up. So I grew up in that environment since I was 3 years
You
old.
grew up in a nursing home. That's interesting.
Seriously. Yeah, I mean, it was 10
Yeah.
miles outside of town,
Yep.
you know, for the county, set up all that kind of thing.
Yeah, good experience, good background. I'm Dave Kleinfelter. We've lived in Minnesota about 10 years. My background was in education, both public schools and higher ed. And we really enjoy Victoria. We've lived here about 8 or 9 years, I think. Before that, Excelsior. So good to be here. It's nice to be part of this group. Susan.
And I'm Susan Bell, and we moved to Victoria 21 years ago. I'm from Wisconsin, needless to say, a Packer fan. I retired. Yeah, I retired 5 years ago. And my background is I've got a degree in recreation management, but I also hold master's in social work license from the state of Wisconsin. Manage a geriatric department in a large healthcare facility, and when we moved here, I ran the Chanhassen Senior Center program. And I too have a passion for working for older adults, or with older adults, which I'm now.
Now that we are one, it's good to work with,
I like
right?
hanging out with myself.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And Alina, welcome, our newest member.
Yeah.
Thank you. Alina Passarelli. I've lived in Victoria for about 10 years and born and raised in Minnesota. I am a certified senior advisor. I'm a certified reverse mortgage professional, and I've worked with seniors my entire life. So I have a real passion for active senior living. And, you know, I've met very, very young 90-year-olds and very, very old 60-year-olds. And I think that the secret sauce is just living and, you know, having an agenda every day. So I hope I can help.
Yeah, very good. So we'll move on to the item of business, which is petitions, proclamations, suggestions, and or complaints.
Oh, great.
Citizens. Anybody on the committee have anything to share at this point? Questions, comments, concerns?
I have a comment. I have to leave at 10:50 because I have a meeting in Bloomington at 11:30.
All right.
That's my comment.
Thank you, Patrick. Anybody else?
I have a
Melissa,
few things,
from the
Chair.
city?
First, Alina, please feel free to take Jack's spot since he's not here today. If you want to move closer
Yeah,
to
move over,
everybody.
be part of the group, Alina.
Oh, poor thing.
Howdy, Jack.
Okay, make sure you talk in a low voice.
And then a couple other things for new committee members. We always have a section where if there's any news from the city, upcoming events, us as staff liaisons just like to bring those forward just to keep you all informed. These are all on the city's website and or in the Parks and Recreation brochure, which goes into a good segue because that's the first item on my list is we do have the new spring and summer Parks and Recreation brochure, which is now posted. Hopefully it all entered each of your mailboxes. If not, we have extra copies at City Hall, at the Recreation Center. And if you're not on the mailing list, let us know. It should go to every single resident in Victoria. We're going to make sure that happens. So if you don't have one, please do let us know. There's also extra copies at the post office too. But some things that you might have seen on there since the committee's recommendation couple months ago, quite a few months ago, we've continued to do the 55 plus table of contents, which will be on the first page there. So any sort of 55 plus programs or things that are geared towards that group that will be right there on the front page or front inside cover page. There are a couple new courses for us. We're returning the Medicare 101 course. You'll see that in there. I think the first one is coming soon. We also have a CPR hands-only course. That will be the first program in May 7th this year. And then brand new program, we do have knitting being offered at the Recreation Center this year. So if you know of anyone of any age group that would like to start learning how to knit or would like to just have a group to knit with, this might be your place to go to. And then the other activity that I wanted to throw out there is April 22nd in a couple of weeks is Earth Day. And through that program, City Council is going to be doing a walk right before their council meeting. And we as staff are really going to start promoting our walking routes and those trail routes that this committee spent so much time identifying and laying out. So that's going to be that first step for us to really promoting those individual routes that we created here. So I just wanted to share that with you. Hopefully the weather is nice. If it is, grab a friend during the day, during the evening, whenever, and then grab one of those trail route maps that we worked on and just go for a quick little stroll. So.
Are those maps going to be somewhere where people can pick one up?
We're working on getting them on the website first, and then we are going to update our Parks and Trails route map, or, we have that little pocketbook, so we're going to make that larger. Those probably won't be ready by April 22nd, but hopefully ready by this summer, so then we can have those ready to go. And those will have the individual trail route maps on there. Yep, those.
Very good. Thank you, Melissa.
You bet.
I do want to add one thing. I thought the new brochure was really nicely done. Lot more, it was very appealing. So whoever was in charge of that, Alyssa, or whoever, it was really nicely done.
I cannot take any credit. We have a wonderful Parks and Rec department as well as a communication department that does all the design work for the Park and Rec brochure. And they take all their own photos. So even the front cover photo with the garden set, that's all of their individual photos. They do a wonderful job.
Do we have a Parks and Rec director, or are you still filling in?
I am still filling in currently. We're going through the interview process in the next couple of weeks or so. We reopened it and it just closed at the end of last month.
Do you want to share any other news about the Park and Rec department?
Yes, we do have our Park and Recreation supervisor, Holly Koffel, that's been with us for about 15, actually closer to 16 years now, has a new role at the City of Maple Grove. She's going to be their recreation supervisor specializing in special events. It's going to be a great opportunity for her. We are very excited. But that also means we have another opening in the Parks and Rec department. So we're going to be hiring for that soon too. Yep.
And I think her last day is Thursday, isn't
It's
it?
Thursday. Yep. And if you know her really well, I think there's a card that is at the Recreation Center that people are able to sign. If you're a frequent flyer at the Rec Center or know Holly personally, feel free to sign that too. Thank you. That up.
Yeah. Okay. We'll move on to item 4, the approval of minutes. We have 2 meetings, December 4th and March the 4th. We have a motion to approve those 2 sets of minutes.
I make a motion to approve the 2 sets
Susan?
of minutes.
Is there a second?
I second.
We got Sharon on this one. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries. The minutes are good. We don't have any old business to handle this morning, so we'll move to new business, which is the election of a chair and vice chair. And we're going to turn it over What? Did I
Oh,
miss
no.
something?
Nope, I missed something.
Oh, okay.
So I just wanted to note in the agenda itself, it has that the chair and vice chair will be from April 1st, 2024 to March 31st, 2024. It's supposed to be March 31st, 2025.
25.
Clarification that it is a full year term, not a
Yeah.
negative 1 month term or negative day term.
All right, thank you for that correction. Then we're going to let Alyssa chair the meeting at this point, in the election.
You bet. So we do this every year. Obviously, David has been our chair for the last 3 years. What the role of chair is leading the meetings, getting prepped for the meetings. We do have a chair script that we provide as staff just to help walk through some of the Robert's Rule of Order type of things. But as you know, he sets the meeting in motion, goes through each of the individual motions, walk through each of the agenda items with us, and then it helps with the adjournment piece as well. Sometimes a couple minutes before the meeting, we'll chit chat about what's on the agenda, just so we're both prepped and ready to go for some of those things. And what we have to do each year is obviously nominate a new chair and a vice chair. What the vice chair then does is back up for whoever the chair is. If David's out on vacation or he isn't able to attend a meeting or whoever that chair is, they would be able to step in and manage the meeting from that point. So each year, like I said, we have to have a new chair and a vice chair. So just to kind of walk us through the process, I have it on the screen. Obviously, as chair, you call a nomination like you tend to for all the other motions that we have. Any of you sitting in here can nominate somebody for that position. Anybody can second that nomination. If that person is willing, that sometimes happens, or someone might not be wanting to, but if they are willing, they can do a head nod. They can say, yes, I'll accept that nomination. And then we'll go into formal motion to have them be chairs. So it's kind of tricky where we have to have 2 motions for appointing a chair role. And then we'll do the same exact thing for the vice chair role. And I will walk us through that piece step by step too. So with that, I will pass it over to Chair Kleinfelter if he just wants to call for a nomination and get us started.
Is there a nomination for chair?
Okay, I'll nominate you.
Richard nominates me, David. Do we need a second for this on the nomination?
You do. Yep.
Is there a second?
I second.
Susan seconds.
And then it would be, if there are any other nominations, this would be the time to say them now.
Okay.
And if none, then we can go into the motion to appoint. So then we'd ask for another first and another second to nominate David as chair for April 1st, 2024 to March 31st, 2025.
I nominate David for chair from April 1st to March 31st, 2025 for a 1-year term.
Okay. We have a second.
I second.
Sharon, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. We'll move to the election of the vice chair.
Same process. So we'll take nominations.
Floor is open. Any nominations for vice chair?
I'll nominate Susan.
Susan's been nominated. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Patrick, thank you. Any other nominations for vice chair? If not, we need a motion then to appoint Susan, correct? She's the only one. Want to go again, Richard?
I still nominate.
Thank you. In a second.
I'll do that again.
Patrick, we're good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Sue's been elected as the vice chair. We'll move on then to next order of business, which is orientation. Alyssa's going to give us a little orientation here so we all know what we're supposed to be doing.
There you go.
Well, it's been very clear that y'all know what you've been doing for quite a long time. And congratulations, Chair and Vice Chair, again for your reappointment. You've been wonderful to work with these last 3 years, and happy to have you back on the the main seat at the dais again. So what we do every April, which is kind of the first beginning of the year for committee terms, is just do a little orientation. We don't get too much into the weeds, but just to kind of do an overview of what the committee is, when do we meet, where the locations are. These meetings are recorded, just kind of like a heads up on that. And then we are going to do a little bit on open meeting law, but because we had that larger open meeting law training earlier in March, we're going to just kind of make that as short as possible. However, if you see how the last item on the slide here is question and answers, so do not hesitate to ask any questions. You also don't have to wait for the end of this presentation to ask any questions. If you have any thoughts, questions, whatever, feel free to interrupt me. It can be pretty informal for this one. So just to kick us off, what is the Senior Advisory Committee? So just kind of on a larger answer of that question, its purpose is to provide recommendations and advocate for resources, programs, education for the 55-plus community. Broken down, there's pretty much these three core responsibilities, areas of the committee, which are reviewing and providing recommendation, being community ambassadors, and then promoting and evaluating resources and programs. So even to break that a little bit further, under the review and recommending category, this committee's role is to receive and evaluate information and input from the community, bring those forward to staff, to the city, regarding anything 55-plus related, whether it's programming that we offer, program that we don't offer, resources that are available or not available. They also make recommendations to city staff, council, and other committee members on 55-plus related activities, and they also serve as researchers and provide us with information and trends that enhance the lives of our 55-plus community. Related to the ambassadors piece, you all are really truly ambassadors to the community. Not only do you bring information forward through this platform, but you also talk to me on a regular base level when I see you out and about in town, or maybe before these meetings or afterwards. And then you also promote activities outside. You take what you hear from these committee meetings or what you see out in the community, activities that you've participated in, and then you share those with your neighbors, friends, family, relatives, and that's really important to this role. And then as we just had the citizens' complaints, suggestions, whatever, that last one, providing resident issues. If there's things that are going on in the community, whether they're 55-plus related or not, please feel free to share them during that area or whenever else. We're happy to know of things that are going on in the community, positive or negative, so we can go ahead and fix them or make adjustments. And then promoting and evaluating 55-plus resources. Obviously, we've served as volunteers through certain activities that we've held as this committee, advocates again on issues that have occurred or programming, and then again, feedback on what we're doing as a city and as city staff to make sure that we're doing the best job that we can for our 55-plus community. So just a really quick snippet into what we do. Obviously, we do a lot at this committee, and there's a lot of individual things, and we'll get into that in the work plan that kind of all lead into what we just mentioned here, but just wanted to kind of go over that quickly. So then meeting and agenda items. This committee meets the first Monday of each month at 10 a.m., except if there are holidays, scheduling conflicts, and most importantly, elections. We can't have anything in between elections either. And we also meet here at City Hall in council chambers. Obviously, if things do change or we have to meet in the conference room, or I think our last meeting we met adjacent to the conference room, we make it work, and as city staff, we make sure that any legal notices that we have to post for those are completed and done. Even if it's scheduling changes, we take care of that on our end. And then member commitment. The city council requests that if you're a committee member that you're committed to this role. And it's okay if you're not, and you're more than willing to step down on that 3-year term. But with that, they ask that you just make sure that you don't miss 3 consecutive meetings and that you're still active in the committee. And then for meeting agenda format, just to kind of go through, obviously you all see the meeting agenda. I send this out to you guys 3 days before the meeting, tend to be either Thursday or Friday, the week prior, since we meet on Mondays. And what you're looking at when you see those come through your email is we have a call order. That's the gavel saying this meeting has started at 10 whenever. We do a roll call or introductions. We go through those petitions, proclamations, suggestions, or complaints. That's your time as committee members to let us know as staff what we're doing well, what we're doing not well, things that we need to improve upon, and just maybe what you're hearing and from your neighbors or your friends or or fellow committee members. And then that's also the time that I share what's happening in the city. We do approval of minutes. We try and get those as staff, get those to you after each meeting. So next meeting in May, I'll have the April minutes done so you can review those, make sure that they're accurate to what we discussed, and so we can get those approved, and then they'll get posted so anyone can go and check those out on our city's website. We go through old business and new business. The difference between those two is if we've discussed it prior, and sometimes it just doesn't also work out that way. Like, for example, we are going to talk about the work plan next. We talked about that at the last meeting, but we have to do vice chair and orientation first, so we just move that into new business. So sometimes it doesn't always follow that old business, new business terms there. And we have other business. That's, again, if there's anything that needs to be brought up by the committee or by staff, we throw it in that section. And then the last part is adjournment. And we try and keep these meetings an hour. We all know that this is during the day and that every one of you have very busy lives. So we want to make sure that we're keeping us on time and that we're not going over that. And then live broadcast and recordings. So we do record and have these meetings live and available to the public. So just as caution, every time that we're in this room, just know that your microphones might be on, being broadcasted out to the public. If you see that on-air sign, there's a good chance that it's being recorded. That's why we have that there. Sometimes we do have it done a little early, but we keep our microphones muted. But just as an FYI, that this is recorded and that we do keep these almost permanently. And that helps us on staff, if we forget something in minutes or didn't hear a motion, that we're able to go back, but also it provides that level of transparency to the public. They might not be able to watch it at 10 o'clock or be here, but they might be able to watch it in the evening, or for Jack, who might not be able to attend, he can watch after the meeting when he is available. And then where to watch it. Let's say you guys are not able to meet a meeting and you're looking for something to watch, or you're interested in one of our other advisory committees, Planning Commission, Parks and Rec, or City Council meetings. You can all find the videos on the same spot. You can watch them if you have MediaCom. They have a public access channel, Channel 8, that you can watch it on there. We also have what we call our agenda portal, which is through iCompass, is what the software term is, but agenda portal is what we mostly call it. You can find our meeting agendas on there, our minutes, and all videos. So they're all in one spot. We like to have that hub so it's easy for people to find. And then on the city's YouTube channel, they're also broadcasted live and recorded through that as well. So a lot of people are familiar with YouTube. They have the application on their phone so they can watch it pretty much anywhere. And like I said, this is going to be a quick overview. So now we're kind of hopping into the open meeting law. I know many of you attended that open meeting law training a couple of weeks ago, so I'm not going to get into this too much, but just in a simple, quick statement, open meeting law is a law that's in Minnesota that requires that meetings of public bodies are to be open to the public. So on screen they have some 3 principles that are part of this law, which are to prohibit actions from being taken at a secret meeting where it's impossible for the public to attend or be involved, that there is a right for the public to be informed of meetings, and that there's an opportunity for the public to present their views to a public body. And they also contain, obviously, very specific information about notices, where notices are posted, how they're posted, what's on the notice, and any record keeping, like minutes and things after the fact. But for those things, that is all staff side. We take care of notices, minutes, any of those items. What's really important for you as committee members is to know that open meeting law exists in this room, but also outside of the room. So when it comes to if all 6 of you are going to go have coffee at Ruby's Roost next door, you shouldn't be talking about Senior Advisory Committee business, because it does not allow the public to know that that meeting is being held, and that they aren't able to see what's going to even be talked about at that meeting. So we just want to make sure that you all know that the public is watching. And so if you all are even at Ruby's Roost sitting together, someone might say, hey, are you talking about committee business? And they might ask you about that. And the answer is no, we're not. We're sitting down having a cup of coffee and enjoying each other's company and talking about something else. So so a little bit of an open meeting law. I know that the presentation a couple weeks ago got really into the nitty gritty. So I just wanted to do that high level.
Remind us of what's a quorum, and it's a quorum, right, that crosses the threshold. If two of us are together, it's okay, but if we hit the quorum status, then it's illegal.
Yes, thank you for that clarification, Chair. So it is based on a quorum. A quorum is a majority of a committee.
Yeah.
So if there's two of you getting a cup of coffee talking about something that happened at this meeting, or talking about, hey, we should make sure that we bring this up at the next meeting, absolutely fine. If there's three of you, that would make a quorum. That would be the problem piece. In addition, there's also kind of a chain open meeting law violation as well. It's kind of like the game of telephone, where you might have two of you that are talking about committee business, which is fine, but if one of that person goes and has that same conversation with another committee member, then you're violating open meeting law because it's through a chain. So it's not like you can call Sharon, we're having a conversation, it's okay, then Sharon calls Richard, then Richard calls David, then David calls Susan, then Susan calls Alina, and then it's having a meeting at that point.
And similar with emails, right?
Similar with emails.
You can send email to one or the other, but if you start getting a group,
Yep.
it'll be good.
Yes. Thank you for that clarification. And I will also say this meeting applies to this body, City Council, any of the other citizens advisory committees that we have at the city, but also in other communities, as well as at the county level. I believe the library board follows those rules as well, and your school districts. So just know that this is just not for us, it's for everybody. And so we should expect this for everyone at this point.
So I'd like to add in here, I went to that training. I'd like to compliment the people who did it, because I thought it was well done. You know, it could be somewhat of a long topic. They kept our interest and really did it well. So I'd like to really enforce whoever set that up.
Thank you. That is through our attorney's office. They do a wonderful job. We love having them on there, and they are truly experts in the subject. And we started this about 2 years ago, where we started having this training, and it really has helped just inform people that this is going on, and this is something to be conscious of, and this is why we do it. Because it's one thing for me to say open meeting law exists, but it's another thing for them to explain why it's so important, and how do you make sure you follow those. So thank you. I'll let them know.
Let's move on to the next item of business then, which is the work plan, which is probably one of the more important things that we do. And we'll turn it over to Alyssa again to introduce the work plan and see if there's questions or discussions about it.
You bet. Thank you, Chair. So for those that were in attendance at last meeting, we spent almost the entire hour really talking about what this next year and future years of the Senior Advisory Committee will be, and really nail out some potential topics for a work plan. But to back it up even a step further, why are we talking about a work plan? What is a work plan? Each year, City Council requires that each one of these committees, Planning Commission, Parks and Rec, Senior Advisory Committee, generate a work plan that says what the committee is going to be working on throughout the year. So we put something together for them to review. We have timelines in there. And then we bring it forward to them at, I think, their May meeting is what we're having it scheduled for now. And then they can either approve it, deny it, or make some recommendations or tweaks to it, which they have done for other committees in the past. And I think even last time they had some tweaks for us to do. So with that, we each year then have to go through what's going to be on that work plan, what's important to us, what do we want to make sure is on the docket, what do we want to work towards this upcoming year. And sometimes we complete all of it really quickly, sometimes we don't complete all of it and we move them into the following year depending on if that's still where our interest lies. So with that, I'm going to scroll down and just take a look at the proposed work plan. This is not set in stone. And again, if there's any questions while I walk through this, please feel free to ask questions. Please feel free to jump in. If there's anything that doesn't seem right, let's talk about it, because this is not set in stone in any ways. We can make any adjustments. But the first one, and this one has been static for quite a while, is conduct an assessment of the senior resource packet. Probably 2021, this committee really delved into the issue of there's no consolidated list of resources in this area, and they brought together the senior resource packet. And as part of this project, it's always good for us to take a look at it, make sure that the resources in there are still one resources, but if there's any change of phone numbers, website addresses, and if there's any new resources, making sure we're getting those added. I think the last one we added vision. That was something that Patrick brought up, so we added a whole new section to that, as well as some other tweaks in areas too. So wanting to make sure that's front and forward, that we're still continuing that project on. This one is also something that we continue to keep on here, and it's recommend better ways to communicate and reach Victoria's senior population. This is something that's a huge challenge, and we always want to know how do we better promote our resources, get the word out there that these events or programs are going on. So making sure that we're spending time looking through those things. And I think a great example of how this committee has done that is through our Parks and Rec brochure. We didn't have a 55 plus option for people to like click on when they're registering for events, and it was just this huge list of adult programming, but it never separated out. So that was an example of what this committee has done to help communicate our programs. Also, the table of contents in our Parks and Rec brochure dedicated to 55 plus programming was part of this too. So there's always room for us to recommend ways. Yes. This is something we added last year, and we're going to continue to rely on this committee to be stakeholders and focus groups for our Downtown West project. Downtown West, obviously we're in downtown now, but there's 13.5 acres north of the Dairy Queen that the city owns and has been working towards to expand our downtown core area. We talked about this, I think, in February, March of last year. We were part of a survey group that staff and council held to really think about downtown West and what that could be. Now we're going through the phases of doing an RFP. We're looking at more opportunities, so it might not be right away, but when those opportunities come up or we're looking for community feedback and stakeholder groups, we'll bring in this committee and say, hey, we want to hear what your thoughts are. What are we missing? What do we need to look at differently? And just kind of go through those steps. And then this last one on this first page is also something that you all are familiar with because we've been working really hard on this for the last year, which is develop walking trail routes for the city and incorporate into a trail map. And I know that we've done a lot of work. We created the routes, we walked them, we did our walk audit, and we're starting to look at promoting them. But we're not quite done yet because what we have to do is look at those audits that you all did, compile them into a study, and then have recommendations for us on how do we move forward with this. Let's say in one of the studies or one of the audits that you all did or the assessments, you said this needs more seating or more lighting. We need to be able to document that. So when we're looking at how do we fund this, we can say, okay, there's a grant. We know we're going to go for this piece. And now we have a study that explains why this is important. The other piece is looking and making sure that we're communicating this properly. To go back up to the continue to recommend better ways to communicate to our senior population, making sure that we're actively as staff promoting that these walking routes exist and making sure that we're getting them promoted through our community.
I had a question, and are there steps identified, or is that our job to identify ways, like under continue ways to communicate, reach out to identified groups, organizations, and neighborhood? Like with park and recreation programs or planning or anything, what are other ways other than the website that you reach out to, neighborhood groups or organizations?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sue. So depends on each activity program, all of it. It really just depends. So obviously for our Park and Rec, we have the brochure. That's mostly the only paper thing that we do, except for some very specific project initiatives. Like we'll do for our EAB treatment, they'll have postcards that are sent out to each of the individual neighborhoods. For our sponsorships, we do sponsorship letters. So there's just some minor things that we do periodically throughout the year. We haven't found that postcards are all that effective, but what we've started to do just recently within this last year is utilize yard signs, which have really seemed to help on certain things. So if you're out walking the trails or out in the parks or driving by a city property, having that physical component that says, hey, we're doing a park and rec survey. Please let us know how our parks need to improve, or please let us know how we're doing here. For the Downtown West, we had them all over downtown and other areas. Like, tell us how you want to see Victoria grow. Those have seemed to really help improve, but there are always ways for us to do better. Is there step-by-step on how we achieve that? No, not through this work plan, but if that's something the committee would like to see, or at least have a meeting that maybe we dedicate to better communication, we can definitely do that through this work plan here. The other thing I want to note is that the Parks and Rec is also going through their work plan, and this is also a topic that they're talking about too, is not necessarily communicating programs, but how do you engage the community when we're looking at remodeling, rebuilding, or bringing in new park amenities?
Two thoughts, and I don't know how effective they are, but I know other community centers, recreation centers, even libraries, city halls, the message boards in the, or like the monitors scrolling. I don't know the effectiveness of those, but you look at the recreation center, it gets a lot of traffic at certain times. So I don't know how effective they are. I mean, it's visually kind of appealing, but I don't know how effective. And I just totally forgot number 2.
Senior moment.
If it comes back, I'll let you know. But anyway, so it's, if you know much about communication, I mean, what do they say? You need to see a message 7 times before. And so that's a challenge for everyone. But so I think we should all keep that kind of in our thoughts of how we can improve and promote what we do.
Absolutely. And maybe we do a brainstorming session. Maybe we get off the dais, we have a meeting, and maybe we don't have all the answers, but we can talk about just openly, what do we think are better ways that we can communicate? And it doesn't have to be on a specific project, but just in general. How do we get people aware of what's going on?
I thought of number 2. And I don't know, we used to do email blasts all the time, but I don't know if you're allowed to do those anymore. Anyone who is in your database, you could target them for certain populations. Can the library do that? I mean,
We
and
did a lot during COVID.
yeah. and
Oh, yeah, I bet.
Just as an effective way, like even the Citizens Committee, I got 2 other couples to come, or I mean, word of mouth, but just to have a reminder, that email, and as long as they're in your system, that used to be an effective method of communication.
We do have, every other week, we do an email blast, which has a lot of city news. However, we are limited on how we use people's personal emails. So if you sign up to the email blast, you can only get those email blasts. If you sign up to receive notifications that the senior advisory committee is meeting, we can't send you the email blast or anything other than those things. So it's very specific. Like if you sign up for online utility billing, we're not going to email you about anything else other than utility billing. So there's some like rules and limitations on that. But we can go through that if we want to do like a brainstorming session on better ways to communicate. We can talk about all those things that we like. What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What kind of hinders us? But what can we do better?
Well, and you have the knowledge of what can and can't be done too. So, or you can explore it.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
true. The best answer is I don't know, but I can find out.
That's right.
Thank you.
So Alyssa, if we wanted to highlight that, can you scroll back up to the item to continue to recommend ways to communicate and so forth? So we could dedicate an upcoming meeting to brainstorm about that, and then that may lead to follow-on kind of actions. So we don't need to put it in the plan, but FYI, right?
Yep. Let's spend some
Let's
time
do that.
talking about it.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Sue.
So moving on to the next page, this is also an item that we continue to keep on there, and obviously this individual is not here today because they're working through a transition at Carver County's Office of Aging, but continue to stay engaged with them. They're just another avenue of, they know a ton of resources that are available to Carver County in the region. Carver County also hosts different events. They were huge at letting us know what was happening during COVID and keeping us updated with clinics, whatever numbers there were. So we want to make sure that they're still involved in this committee and in making sure that they know that what's happening here too, so they can let other communities know. In the past, whoever is working as the Office of Aging officer goes to each of the senior advisory committee meetings at all the county cities that have this type of committee. And they let us know what's happening. So if Chan's doing a senior expo, we're aware of it. Or if we're going to host the Donuts in Victoria event on specific items, they'll let other communities know as well. So it's just a really good way for us to know what's out there, but also share our resources too. And then the last one, and this is what I think a lot of our time was spent talking about last meeting, was explore what a senior facility could look like in the city of Victoria. And this is not actually new. We had this in our work plan last year, but we didn't get around to it. But what I did is I kept it on there, but then I added to it based on what the committee talked about at the last meeting. So we talked about doing some tours of senior focused facilities and learning about what our neighboring communities are doing, as well as other metropolitan cities related to senior facilities, what they look like, what kind of programs they offer, what activities do they have, what does their space really look like. And then what we also talked about is the Victoria Recreation Center's lease with the school district is going to come due in about 8 years. So as staff, as council, what we're looking at is what does the future of that space look like? Because once that lease is over, there's going to be some obviously big changes to that. And we want to start planning today because 8 years is going to come really fast. And we want to make sure that we're putting the right amenities in there or we're making the right adjustments to that space. So we want to have this group involved in that. We're going to start looking at planning this year. So making sure that this group has a voice when it comes to what that future of that space looks like. Also create and recommend goals for a senior facility space. We talk about what could a short-term arrangement be, even if it's at the recreation center, just having a space and a welcoming environment for people to go that might be senior age, and maybe we change of furniture in our lower lobby area, so we have our credenza, tables, chairs. What do we put in there? What do we want that space to look like? How do we want that space to feel? What is the goal of that area? Obviously, that goes into the potential locations for short-term. And then, again, recommend potential lists and items to have located in that designated space. What events, activities, programs, whether it's passive programs or active programs do we want in that location?
I assume we will spend, again, an entire meeting just going over this again, or was that what I missed? Because there's two things I want to add, that's why.
Yes. Well, why don't you share that?
Okay, so on this, as we visit senior-focused facilities, I really want to hope we visit Edina, because Edina has the model of a shared library and senior center.
Aha.
You were talking about.
Yeah, and then related to that is I would say this group should also become stakeholders in the city of Victoria in the Carver County Library future planning process. Because if doing a dual space is something that we think would be important as the city plans for a new building for the library sometime, again, probably in the next 8 years, maybe sooner, that we would recommend. So I would add those two.
That's good. Also, what's the timetable for the West project? You mentioned 8 years on the rec center, but it seems to me that the senior citizen facility library could be part of that downtown West project. So what's the timetable there? Is it similar? Is it faster?
It really depends. That's all going to be development driven. So it really depends on market. If we would have talked about this 5 years ago, if downtown West would have been ready with utilities, it would probably be almost done now just because of how crazy the market was in 2020. Now it's slowing down, especially in the commercial area. So it's going to take a little while. I don't have a magic 8 ball to tell us what that number or when that year is going to be. We do have what we called phase one, relatively completed. After we did our survey and piece, there was Kraus Anderson came to us with an apartment complex that was approved by council earlier last year. That's going to go into that space, and that will really kick off the rest of the development. What we've heard from developers through this whole project is without people, it really is hard to bring in other commercial avenues. So that's going to help kick that off. Then we also talked about the green space. That was actually a real big piece to what we talked about a year ago. That's also part of phase one. So we're going to start talking more and more about what that central green looks like for downtown. And then phase two, which we're doing an RFP for. So we're asking developers, okay, we have this apartment complex, we're going to have this central green. Give us your ideas of what the next phase is going to look like. Is it retail? Is it mixed use? What do we want to see for that space? Then we'll get engaged in that too. But timelines, when that all will actually get constructed, is all up in the air right now. I hope that answered your question without making it more confusing.
Is that apartment complex the one off behind, when you cross the Dairy Queen there and go on 11?
It will actually be off Steiger Lake Lane. Past the bridge.
That's not the apartment that's under construction here.
It is
No,
not.
There's
No.
another one.
But it is not under construction.
No.
How close to completion is phase one? Or does that automatically, that's probably not an easy question.
They haven't started, have they?
They have not even started yet
No.
on construction.
Planning and where's the planning or
The plan for the apartment complex is done. That part is finalized. Really, what also is part of phase one, and I guess just to differentiate, we probably should call it 1.5, is the central green space. That is key. That planning is not officially, like the design has not started. We got feedback, we got ideas. We haven't done
a year
design yet.
ago, we shared
Yep.
we had at one of our meetings talked about what that green space could look
Yep.
like, but it's still just.
They're
in
still
the
grabbing
talking
ideas,
stages.
aren't they?
They're still grabbing ideas. It really helps to have, part of it is that apartment complex, their construction will also take place at the same time as whenever that construction of that central green is. So it's almost like you have to do it in tandem, which makes design really hard because the apartment hasn't even started yet.
And that new senior housing complex is on the left going,
That is south of
west?
Highway 5.
yeah,
Yep.
okay,
And that has not been final approved yet either.
right.
Takes a long time there's a lot of talk, but my
Yeah.
understanding, until a formalized plan is brought to city council and approved and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's a long process to get.
It's a very long process. It starts with what we call a preliminary plat, which is just more of like a back of a napkin drawing idea of, hey, we have this piece of property. This is like what we'd like to see with it. It goes to planning commission, it goes to parks, it goes to city council, and all those voices come together and say, here's what we like, here's what we don't like, before you actually get to where it starts getting expensive to do design work. So as soon as they hear everyone's feedback, as soon as staff hears feedback, they go back and forth with the developer, like, we heard that we wanted more trees, so then we try and make more trees happen, or whatever that feedback is, or this road is kind of in a weird spot, so let's move it somewhere else. Then they bring back a formal application, and then planning commission will review it. There's still tweaks that can be made when it comes to that final or that application, but it's a little bit more expensive and costly to actually move things. But that's when you see things like buffers getting like constructed out or lot sizes actually getting defined, and then after that goes through, it goes to final plat. And that's, again, the planning commission reviews it. They're still making tweaks. They're still making recommendations. And then it goes to council, who will also make tweaks and recommendations. And that's when it will get finally approved. And at that point, whoever that developer is, the builder is, can actually start applying for permits, which then leads into actual construction. So, long story short.
You know what I like
Not an easy process.
about the new construction? The city of Victoria is very adamant about keeping their trees and foliage and things. Seriously. I was out at the new Macatoons on 7 out there. Okay, so it's surrounded by new townhouses, apartments, development. I didn't see a tree, a shrub. And you go to Chaska on 41, where they put that new construction in development. I mean, there's rows and rows of apartments and townhouses, not a tree, not a green space anywhere. And it's just, I mean, it's not real homey, I don't think. Homey looking, you know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
So I was real happy to hear the city of Victoria has stipulations.
We have a really amazing planning staff.
Yeah.
We have really great relationships with our developers, so we can have those honest conversations of, we know why people move to Victoria. We know why people love Victoria, and it's our ability to connect with nature. It's ability to
Yeah.
walk outside and still have the rolling hills, the wetlands, the natural environment that this Carver County has to offer. So we're able to say, okay, this is what we're looking for. This is our priorities. Let's make it happen together and figure that out. But that's years and years of hearing what the community wants and why they moved here in the first place. I do want to know if you are more interested in the development review process and the nitty-gritties of it. We do have an entire page dedicated to the step-by-step. This is really geared towards more developers, like, so they know if they're looking to do something here, they know exactly what the stages are. But it is on our website under development services, and it just goes plat, preliminary plat, and final plat steps. So if you're interested in all of this, there's more information on our website that we have available to the public.
Alyssa, I was really researching all the approved developments on the site, but I didn't see anything about the senior housing south of 5.
That has not been approved yet.
And where's that
Trying to
proposed?
What's that? Bridgewater? No, what's the name of that? Ridge? The housing development up there.
Amira, it is on.
Well, Amira and United Builders, but I mean the, what's it called? That housing development that's there. Bridgewater? No,
Oh, Lake Bridge.
Lake Bridge.
Yes.
I knew there was a bridge in it somewhere.
So we do have I'll step back a little bit too.
So
if
it's
you-
on the front of Lake Bridge on 5,
yes.
facing Auburn?
Nope, it's on, I guess kind of. Let me see if I.
Do you have a map,
Oh,
Alyssa?
I should have brought those papers.
So if you go on to the city's website under communities, projects, and we have a development and planning projects.
Yeah.
There's a couple different sections. So obviously we have downtown west. This is housing and business mixed use projects. You got to scroll past that.
Yep.
And then there's housing current and proposed. So we have quite a few on here because Victoria is growing.
Interbrook.
Huntersbrook, Creekside, Brookmore, and then Amira Senior.
There it is.
Ooh.
For. So obviously it just gives you the quick Wikipedia snippet of what this is. However, you can click on this and it will give you all the city council meetings of times that the Amira project has been talked about. So you can look at the Sketchpad submittal. Obviously, they had some meetings about it in October, so it's been a while since this has really been talked about. Obviously, like Sue mentioned, it takes a really long time to get from Sketchplat to the next phase and the next.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yes.
There's a new
See if this even comes up.
construction in Minnetonka by Amira and United Builders. It's a very nice complex.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So it's this.
There's the map, yeah.
So this is Highway 5.
Yeah.
So it'd be south of that. This is Lake Auburn. So to give you an idea. And this is Lake Bridge. But this is not confirmed yet. It's just going through. I'm going to quickly sneak back for a second.
So I live in the little Auburn neighborhood.
yes.
I sincerely hope when that comes in, it creates sidewalks into town.
Well,
Sincerely hope, because we are so landlocked, we can't, and half our neighborhood is over 55, and that we're all active and we go bike riding and things, but we have to put our bikes in our cars to get to a path. So I hope.
There's limitations behind that, but with this development, what they've asked, or what staff has asked, is there's the Lake Minnetonka Regional Trail it stops at Kirklocken Park right outside of downtown.
Yep.
And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 5 parcels that connect back into Lake Bridge. As part of this development, if it goes through, staff has asked that this whole red dotted line becomes trail. So it extends the trail a little bit further, but we still have 3 other property owners that we have to work with, which if property owners aren't interested, the cost of buying it is very expensive. We're just not quite there at completing that trail section until maybe that area develops or there's some additional road construction projects that are happening, but we're getting it further than it was. We're advancing it a little bit quicker. But we're not there yet at filling that trail gap because we know that this whole western section here, there's not that direct connection to downtown. And we'd like to get everyone connected to downtown, or at least the ability to. It's really huge.
Wonderful.
That's interesting.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Well, that's a minor point, but on the topic, explore what a senior facility could look like in the city of Victoria. It's minor, but I think it should be facility/program. Underneath there, you talk about programs, and we'd be thinking about what we would do with that facilities. I think it's helpful just to say facility/program.
Senior facility, yeah.
So we're not just building a building.
You bet. Good differentiation there. And from what I'm hearing from the committee, and I saw head nods when Patrick was talking to, is one, we can make sure we get Edina added to the tour list. We were kind of talking about potential ideas for who we might want to tour. At last meeting, but we'll get a defines list and get that talked about at this committee to see if that's what we want to do. And then in addition, what we can do is add in, include the library as stakeholders as part of this too. I don't want to overstep the library board and say now the senior advisory is now going to be engaged in your future library planning process, but what we can do is talk to them and say, hey, we have this group that we think it would be really important to have them be engaged in that process. What does that look like? But we can include the library as part of that stakeholder, and the library as part of this entire process for when it comes to this Explore Senior Facility, what that could look like for us.
As we do that more, there are a lot of, I'm familiar with the Edina, Chaska, I mean, they have a space connected to their recreation center. There are a number of standalone, I mean, there are numerous options down the road.
Right.
I do have one question. So at the Victoria Rec Center, looking at space right now, where they used to provide childcare, that childcare has been out of there for a long time. That room looks like it's vacant, other than maybe yoga at night in there. So am I correct in that?
There's a lot of underutilized space in the recreation center, and I think that will be key to this conversation, and that's why we included that piece as part of this, is because we might not need to build a new building. We might need to rethink of what the recreation center could be like.
Depending when the contract is up with, the schools. One other thing now I know there's been some restructuring even, I think after Ann left, I think they re-looked at the roles of the 2 present, Ann's position, I forget what that was named, and Holly's. Is there anything in any of those, and I understand, weren't facilities taken away from Ann, that present position, the director's job? I mean, that was restructured as well as Holly's. Is there anything in there to have a little more of a focus of exploring activities for older adults?
I love that question because, so to give some background, and I know we're past 11 o'clock, so I want to keep this as short to give you guys some time back. But we have, in the last 15 years, have not grown our Parks and Rec department. And that's because we had some really amazing staff that just had the capacity to take on a lot. But Victoria's grown also a lot, and we have a lot more people to serve. So what we've done in the last year is we brought on an additional Parks and Recreation member. His name is Mark. He works up here at City Hall, and he's a recreation coordinator. So before Holly announced her leaving, we have 4 recreation full-time employees, which previously we only had 2. One is the director position, one is Holly's position as a recreation supervisor, now Mark. And then at the recreation center, we have a full-time employee. Her name is Brenda. She's our guest service lead who manages the entire front desk and the operations over there, the front desk operations over there. So we've grown a lot just in the last couple of months or so. And now with Holly leaving, we're really reassessing that role of the reason we brought Mark in is to give that programmer, Holly's position, more ability to look at programming that we haven't, or the needs of the community. She has been going through an assessment of these are all the programs we have. This is the age group. This is the purpose. This is how much we're charging them to cost. This is the reason that we're bringing them. And then doing a look when she's done with that, and I'm sure we'll take that on a little bit more now that she's leaving, but say, what are we missing? What age groups are we missing? What is our primary focus? If we take all of that study and say, okay, 70% is geared towards youth and family, and I don't know what that number is, but let's say it is, then we can say, okay, we probably don't need to add any more youth and family right now. We can revise, tweak, remove, and add more.
Holly did this study, or?
Holly's working on the study, yep.
And what does that study consist of?
It's just looking at our current list
Oh,
now
okay.
and saying, what do we have? Because we don't want to add anything without looking at
Right.
what do we currently have. And she has the time, and whoever that new person will be will have the time to, or have more on space on their plate to add additional programs, whatever that missing piece is. And it most likely is going to be more of that older adults, because we do not have a lot dedicated towards older adults right now. So
Well, I think
we'll have
too,
more
you
space.
hit the nail on the head. I mean, the growth in the last 5 years with housing and different type of housing. I mean, Victoria's kind of exploding with the growth of all the new residential and multi levels. Brought a lot of new people into Victoria.
Yes, yes, it has. Awesome. Well, I look forward to all these conversations. What I will do at the staff level, one, I will ask a motion on this item before we leave here today. But what we can do is I'll still make all these tweaks before it goes to council for that formal approval from them. And what I can do is I did have a motion up here or on my PowerPoint presentation, but what I will change it to make sure that everything we just discussed is included within this work plan and in the motion.
So we could pass a resolution now to approve the work plan as amended.
Yep. I just added the word as discussed, as amended and discussed works as well.
Okay.
However you'd like to straight that or create that motion, please feel free to. This is just a recommendation.
Somebody like to make the motion?
So move.
Richard, thank you. Is there a second?
I second. Oh, go ahead.
Alina gets in there, gets her
Nope.
name in the
Yeah,
minutes.
there you go.
First time. Thank you, Alina. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. It carries. And our senior work plan is getting ready to go to the city council. Any other announcements, questions, new business to bring before the group? If not, we need a motion to adjourn.
I motion we adjourn.
Thank you.
A second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.